Kia ora!
Kia ora, and welcome back to Video Drones, or if it's your first time, hello! Nice to meet you. I'm Hannah Harte,
And I'm Nick Harte.
and we review movies because we watch a lot of movies and we love the art of cinema immensely.
Especially a lot of horror movies.
Especially horror movies. And this is a bit of a special one because we're picking out our top 10 horror films of all time, which is kind of a really big deal for us.
It is. It's very hard to do as well.
Yeah, I think you could hear me kind of like yelling from the bedroom, being like, fuck, I can't choose, this sucks. It's like trying to choose your favorite child. It's literally impossible. This was actually really painful, and it was like pulling teeth. I was like, and also like once you've picked out 10 that are better than the, that much better than the rest, then you have to freaking rank them. That was not fun. That was not a fun process. I didn't enjoy that.
Not at all.
It's really hard to you feel like you're kind of betraying them when you're like, well, I think you're slightly better than the other one. But these are the things that you have to do. And also it gives people a really good opportunity to see what our tastes are like, and also maybe introduce you to some films that you might not have heard of otherwise, perhaps. We're also doing this whole top 10 thing because of the Sight and Sound.
Sight and Sound magazine's top 10 greatest films of all time list, which comes out only once a decade, but it's coming out in about 2.5 weeks. So that's why we've been doing top 10 videos.
Indeed. So yeah, this is kind of like almost like choosing our favourite films, but also it was kind of good because then it meant that I could put a horror category and a non-horror category when it comes up to our top 10 favourite films. We're certainly not going to do top 100. It's just nah. But we do a few honourable mentions.
Yes.
So we thought it would be easier if I do my top 10 and we kind of interact with that, and then Nick does his top 10 in a different video. So I guess without further ado, I will jump into it.
Let's do it.
Should we do it? Should we do it? All right. It was actually quite funny because there were some things that were on both of our lists, and we kind of were like,
claw over them.
I was like, I want that one. He's like, no, but I want. But yeah, we've kind of tried to
reach to compromise.
Yeah, negotiate, compromise, all those good things that you do in a marriage. Okay, so I'm going to start out with my number 10, and I'm going to work my way up to number 1, which is, this is quite an event. But with number 10, we're going to go in balls deep. We're going to hit Hellraiser by Clive Barker, because, man, I mean, how could you not love this film? The practical effects are absolutely mind-blowing. The scene with Frank's corpse being reanimated and fleshing out was one of those great highlights in cinema for me. I just think it's amazing. Plus the Cenobites is so cool. You're thinking movie monsters can be a bit lame sometimes, but the Cenobites certainly aren't. To some they are demons, to some they are angels. They're all about pleasure and pain, or the pleasure you get from pain. Some people might think. It's got a really cool kind of, the director is gay, so that, I also really love cinema that's made by gay people, because it's just freaking, I have to watch it. And it's kind of, it's got that really kind of sexual energy about it.
He got a lot of his ideas around the characters' sort of body modification from the band Coil, who were originally going to do the soundtrack, but ended up not doing it because they frequented a lot of sort of gay clubs and had a lot of magazines on body modification, and they lent him these magazines, which he kind of incorporated into the film.
Yeah, it's so cool. The Cenobites are so creative. They look so fantastic, really well. And of course, the concept design for that would have been incredible. Hellraiser's gone on to be like a big thing. There's been that new movie that came out recently, which I really quite liked, except for the part where the Cenobites were running. Because they don't freaking run.
They don't need to.
Cenobites don't run. Whenever you see Cenobites glide, or they just appear. They do not freaking run. That kind of was a bit like, what are you doing? But you also do get to see the birth of a Cenobite, which I thought was really neat.
Yeah, there were some good things about it. It was just a bit forgettable. Like I was hoping it would be, on par with the first two films. I actually liked the second film as much as the first one, probably. I think it's really, really good. And make sure if you like Clive Barker's Hellraiser, make sure you watch his other 2 films, Nightbreed and Lord of Illusions, because especially that last one was quite underrated. So,
Definitely.
And they're great films.
Yeah, Nightbreed is awesome. It's funny actually because Hellraiser is one of those movies that I was too scared to watch for a really long time, because when I was young
Scary poster.
and you see the poster or the cover in the video shop, you'd be like, oh my god, that's way too scary. And it was only fairly recently, in the last 8 years or so, that I finally watched it.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's weird how you hang on to those fears from like when you're like your teenage years and you just think it's going to be too scary. But no, I absolutely loved it.
We're going to watch Irreversible in the next day or two, which is another one you've been putting off watching. But that's sort of understandable. It's got a really horrible rape scene in it.
Yeah.
We can just fast forward that though.
Yeah, but apparently it's really worth seeing.
It's interesting anyway. It's just, it's interesting to see it from a cultural perspective, I guess.
Yeah. I just think Hellraiser is a lot of fun. It's very gleeful. It looks freaking fantastic. I think the effects hold up really, really, really well. And I love all the graphic novels attached to it as well. Sometimes the graphic novels, to be honest, kind of maybe even better than some of the films. Some of the films have been stinkers. But, yeah.
Oh, most of them. Like, after...
Yeah.
The third one was just funny. And it was a huge step down from the first two, and then after that it was just like falling off a cliff, really. They were all terrible, really, except for that one by Scott Derrickson. I think it's like Hellraiser 5 or something, Inferno maybe, I can't even remember the title, but that wasn't great. Yeah.
And the new Hellraiser movie is by the director of The Ritual, which I love. It's one of the only movies.
Lighthouse.
Yeah, and Lighthouse. They're both fantastic, and The Ritual kind of gave me nightmares, which films don't often do. And I really liked The Lighthouse. I thought that was a very interesting take on the horror genre. So I was hoping it'd be good, and it's not bad. And it is good in some ways, and I didn't really enjoy some scenes, but nothing comes close to the first two Hellraiser films. They're just unforgettable.
A better director in doing his own sort of projects rather than having to fit into a franchise, because there's so much money at stake and having to fit into these ideas of producers' ideas, really.
Oh, I think the producers, like, the Jamie who played the lead Cenobite, can't remember her last name.
She was cool.
She was really good, but we could have had Gottmik.
Yeah, that would have been better.
If you know anything about drag, you'll know Gottmik, and Gottmik would have been just the best Cenobite. Gottmik has like crazy charisma, and I think would have been a lot more kind of like, I don't know, just that persona would have been just, I don't know, just bang on for Pinhead. So, I mean, yeah, Jamie didn't do anything wrong. I just kind of thought that if we could have had Gottmik.
Gottmik had already dressed up as Pinhead.
Yeah.
The Hell Priest.
And it was freaking glorious. Okay, so coming in at number 9, we've got It Follows, which is a film that I've showed a lot of people that say that they don't like horror or they find horror too scary, but it's a really good entrance into horror because it's just a bit different, but it also kind of reminds me of like 80s and 90s films as well. It's got the most gorgeous cinematography. It's like Kubrickian level cinematography. You've got these really slow 360 pans that are just wonderful, and just this very patient cinematography, that this wonderful slow burn. The practical effects are awesome. There's some really fantastic moments of body horror, and it's one that I can watch over and over and over, which I'm not like I can't rewatch films over and over and over very often, but definitely It Follows is one of them. The cast is amazing. The concept that there's a sexually transmitted demon, that if you sleep with someone, this demon will follow you, and if you die, it'll go back to the original person that had it. And we don't know the origins of this creature, but this creature can take many forms. It can take the forms of your loved ones or complete strangers, which is a really, really neat concept. And they kind of played into this a little bit with that movie Smile that we really enjoyed. It's kind of a like something Smile kind of like, oh, that's a really interesting concept. And I think it is. It's great. You don't ever really see its true form, so to speak. But that's not really, the point. I mean, the forms it takes are often really, really frightening. So it has moments of proper, pure horror, but it also is more accessible, I think, in a lot of ways. And one of the things I like the most about it is the fact that you don't really know what universe it's in, because it kind of looks like set in the 80s, and there's all these wonderful details, like, the bathrooms are a bit messy. They look like real bathrooms. They don't look like movie set bathrooms. There's this like little bit of grime on things. Little things aren't like perfect, which is just like real life. But there's this weird little clamshell thing that like we don't have it in our universe. It almost looks like a tiny little Kindle or maybe like a cell phone that one of the characters is reading from. But she's reading from a book that does exist in this reality. but there's all these like little things that kind of make you think maybe this is like an alternate Earth or an alternate timeline, or there's slightly different technology, and it's just like very, very slight and subtle, but it makes you feel like the rules of this universe are a little maybe different from our own, which I really, really love. And also, like, when I was watching it, I was like, there's this weird, everything's kind of weird and run down when you sort of go and outside of these suburbs that it's set in. I thought immediately, gee, I wonder if this is Detroit. And it is set in Detroit. And Detroit's a place that I really, really want to visit. I love decaying buildings. And it's also got a really amazing art scene, music scene in Detroit. Has for a very long time.
Yeah, I'd love to go there.
It would be really, that's one of the places.
Nearly went there. Went to Chicago.
Went to Chicago. Yeah. There's this weird sort of, it's like a movie theatre with these big, thick, rich red curtains and an organ playing, which feels very Lynchian actually, but it serves to that whole feeling of like, what universe are we in? And there's certain scenes I just can't get out of my head. There's a scene with a boat and a bunch of guys, and just like, you don't actually see what happens on that boat, but I can't stop thinking about it. It's such a cool concept. I love it. And I think it's just gorgeous. And yeah, it's one of those impeccable films that I can't really find any fault with.
I'm not as big on this one.
No, you're not.
But I do like it. I enjoyed it. It's entertaining, but it wasn't as important to me as a lot of other films.
I think like there's this moment right at the start where you see this beautiful girl running around in like a little slip and red heels, which totally reminded me of Twin Peaks. And then you see her sort of twist into these horrible shapes on the beach. Just such a powerful start. And then the part where I really fell in love with it was when one of the characters is sort of like lying in this beautiful old car, sort of fiddling with a flower on the ground, and just the way it looked and the whole vibe of it, I completely fell in love. I think it's really gorgeous.
It did look cool. I liked the slow zooms. Are very Kubrickian, for sure.
Yeah, big fan of that one. And then for number 8, I've got The Witch, which was Robert Eggers' first film. I knew from the freaking trailer that this was going to be a film for me. Like, I was like, this looks so, I got goosebumps watching the trailer, and that doesn't happen very often. There's something about the setting. You've got this very religious family that's kind of they've come over to America in the very early days of settlement. They've been cast out of their community for being too religious or something like that. So it must be pretty freaking out there, their beliefs. And they end up setting up a little homestead right by the edge of this big, vast, scary forest. And of course, Robert.
Eggers.
I always get them Robert. It's Robert because I think of Roger Ebert, which is But Robert
Eggers.
Robert Eggers. He loves language so much, and that comes through so well in this film. Everyone's speaking in this sort of like era perfect, region perfect sort of to us it's a very unusual way of speaking. It's just it's from the times that it was from.
He's very into that era as well. Like he's very into medieval art and things like that. He's a big stickler for authenticity. And research. He does a lot of research. So yeah, his films are always very interesting to watch for that.
Yeah, and that alone, that makes him really stand out from other directors. But the sense of dread in this, and there's some sounds that I just can't. I actually have to cover my ears because I have watched. This is one of these films that I have watched a few different times and shown a few different people. Yeah, there's some really terrifying sounds that I just, you see it, you'll know what I mean. There's a witch and there's a thing, and just it really. I know quite a lot about witches and the history of witchcraft, and it really gets those details right as well. It's just so well done. And this is Anya Taylor-Joy's first film. She's amazing, and the character that plays her brother is also one of the most frighteningly incredible young actors I've ever seen. There's a scene where he's sort of like, I don't want to say spoilers, but there's something happening to him, and that scene makes my blood run cold. It is so terrifying and so intense and so well done. And of course the mother and the father are also really, really, really great actors. Yeah. What's the lady's name?
I've forgotten her name, but yeah,
she's a British
great.
actress.
She's very good in a film called Red Road.
Yes.
She's the lead actor. She was in Prometheus, which we watched the other night.
She's in Prometheus. She's got quite a severe face. Perfect for a severe religious woman, but she was just fantastic. It's so scary. It really, really is one of those movies that gives me chills and frightens me, and I'm just really happy that it did well, and we have the lighthouse and films like that, and that he's going to keep on making. He did The Northman, which did okay, I think.
I wasn't as keen on that.
I wasn't okay. Well, that's because he wasn't allowed to do. He had everyone speaking in Old Norse, which would have been glorious and would have really helped the atmosphere of the film. But I think that's a film that's a perfect example of what happens when producers get involved.
He said, like, I think trying to be polite about the producers or something. He said that that they let him make the film he wanted to make, but then contradicting that, he said that they made him redub the dialogue in English.
Yeah.
So they didn't let him do what he wanted.
I think he's just being polite, maybe. But I would love to see that film, the director's cut of that film, with lots more gore and, freaky stuff. Because there was a little bit of freaky stuff. Bjork was amazing.
The ships were not amazing.
The ships,
CGI
that opening scene was not the
like,
best.
what are
We
you
were like,
doing?
oh dear, whoops.
This
This doesn't look so good. Moving on to number 7, we've got Mandy, which is so different from the other films. It is really over the top. Visually, it's very colourful. It's very neon. Oh, I love neon in films. I just love it. It's
I almost don't
splashed
think of
with
it
colour.
as a horror when I first think of Mandy, because it's so much its own kind of like language.
Universe,
like
yeah.
Panos Cosmatos is amazing. Like everything. The Viewing we watched last week from Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities, and I easily think that was the best
entrance in the series.
Totally.
Easy. It was
It's
so
got
cool.
such a strong visual language, and
Yeah, we love Cosmatos.
Yeah.
Cosmatos. We love you. You do the most amazing work. So this is Nick Cave at his unhinged best. It came around.
Cage.
Uncaged. What is it?
They always, apparently, like, I saw a thing where Nicolas Cage said that people are always confusing him with Nick Cave.
Oops. That's so weird. Because I don't even like Nick Cave. I'm sorry about it. I'm not a fan. But he's just so good in this.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes to show that, like, he's still got incredible unhinged performances in him.
It was a good year for Nicolas Cage.
Yeah,
with Colour Out of Space.
Colour Out of Space, which is
Another purple film.
I almost put that in here. It was like one of those ones I had to wrestle for because I love it so much. But in the end, Mandy won over Colour Out of Space purely because it is just so much fun and it's so unhinged. There's just nothing like it, and I just love it. I actually love it. I love the story. I love what happens. I love the villains. The aesthetic of this film is just unparalleled. It's just it is completely unique. Definitely you got to see that. See it on the biggest screen you can. I really wish I'd seen this in the cinemas. It would have been
I did. I was
better.
very lucky to
so jealous.
see it at the film festival we have here.
So
A huge theatre. It's like an old-fashioned theatre.
I'm so jealous. That would be amazing. Oh, it's so good. I think that's one I will just rewatch and make other people watch as well. Everyone's performances are just phenomenal.
Andrea Riseborough's great.
Yes.
As Mandy.
Yeah, I love her.
And
I
Bill
love
Duke.
her.
Some of the smaller roles too, like Bill Duke and especially the cult leader. What was his name? He's amazing. Yeah.
And the lady, this cult lady, the older woman who's like,
Irish.
I'll give you the best sex ever. She was amazing.
Can't pronounce her name.
She's also fantastic. And the best score by Johan Johansson, who's arguably like one of our favourite composers.
Yeah, one of.
Stop. He sadly died after this film, which is just devastating.
One of the last films he did. I think they found cocaine and some something like OxyContin or something like that, like a slower kind of drug in the system.
So
I think he just
sad.
had too many things at once in the system. But it was accidental, apparently. But yeah, it's really sad.
So sad.
He's definitely one of the people I was most excited about doing more films.
Yeah.
Everything he did was so much. He sort of took everything much further than most composers do, really. You could tell he put a lot of work into his scores.
Yeah, really. It was so devastating to find out that he died. 'Cause, I mean, even before I met Nick, I was really into his work, and one of those sad things.
Stuff with Denis Villeneuve was amazing, like Sicario especially, and The Arrival.
I love The Arrival score so much.
But and he was going to do the Blade Runner 2049 score, but he was let go because his score wasn't Vangelis enough. Like, it was wasn't traditional enough. So I would have loved, well, I still would love to hear what he recorded for that, because he's done the score. But,
Please release that.
Yeah.
We just wish his family or Denis would release that. We would love to hear that so much. I'm sure it would have been absolutely
I'm sure
perfect.
it'll come out one day.
I hope so, but it's hard waiting.
Yeah.
Number 6 is Battle Royale, the teenage gore fest that is based on an incredible manga, which is even more violent and wonderful. It's by, who's the director of Battle Royale?
Kinji Fukusaku.
Kinji Fukusawa.
It's a bit like Lord of the Flies, this one. A little bit.
I totally think that the Hunger Games stole this idea completely. Of course it did. That's why I've never watched the Hunger Games, because I'm like, fuck you.
You're not
Just
missing
fucking
anything.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like my kind of thing. Battle Royale is amazing. You're set in a kind of totalitarian Japan. It's not that different from, it's not like super, super different. It's just that every year, kids are out of control. Kids are in gangs. Kids are being little dicks. Teachers can't control them. So every year they round up a random classroom and make them fight to the death, till the last one left. Which is so messed up and so great. And there's lots of rules, so there's no way getting around it. You have to like kill each other. You have to slaughter your friends in order to survive. It's amazing. It's amazing. I know that Quentin Tarantino was really influenced by this film.
It's his favourite film.
I'm not surprised.
Around that time, he kept saying that it's his favourite film. He'd probably have a different choice now.
But he's got very good... I'm not a huge fan of his films, but I do think he's got amazing taste in films, and he knows a lot about cinema, so the fact that he likes it is kind of
like... He loves genre films, like
Yes.
exploitation films and things.
And there's a character that wears this like yellow jumpsuit, zip-up jumpsuit, which he actually totally used in Kill Bill. So you can see that he's been very influenced by this film.
Well, she was even in Kill Bill.
Yes, she was. Yeah, yes, she was. Oh, she's so good. There's so many great young actors in this film, and the guy who plays the teacher, he's really creepy. I love him. He's got such a sweet face, but he's such a psycho. Takano, he's so good. It's just so good, and it's absolutely riveting. It's really well shot. All the acting is fantastic. The gore is just mwah, it's just perfection. One of those films that I'll watch over and over and then make other people watch. Yeah, all these are films that I definitely have been like, hey, have you seen this? Can we sit down and watch this together? And I don't mind watching them again. Or some of them I'm kind of like, you kind of have to see this, and I guess I'll watch it with you. But this is like, yes, I get to watch Battle Royale again. I think we watched that together when we caught up right before the earthquakes.
We did.
Right before our lovely earthquakes destroyed everything.
I haven't owned many manga in my life, but that was one that I did just because I love the film so much and owned the DVD and watched it so many times.
It's also very emotional and devastating at times.
It's quite sad.
And I think it's got a lot to do with kind of that ruthless work culture they've got going in Japan, where people just feel so much pressure to succeed and to beat out the competition that people are literally dying from overwork and killing themselves. So I think it's maybe a little bit of a commentary on Japanese society, especially how young people are responding to having to have so much pressure to succeed in life. It's brilliant film. And it holds up really well. I mean, I think it was done in the 90s, was it?
Late 90s.
Late 90s?
Yeah.
It still looks fantastic. It's like it was shot yesterday. So, just looks
maybe
gorgeous.
early 2000s.
Maybe even, yeah. But it just looks fantastic. And of course, it's shot in film, so it's even better than fantastic. Number 5 is Event Horizon. Now, I don't know why this didn't get a good reception when it came out, because when I saw it when it came out, it scared the living shit out of me. Like, it fucked me up. It's one of the only films I've ever watched that made me feel really like I was kind of going a little bit crazy. And I know now that that's because I was being introduced to Lovecraftian cosmic horror, which Event Horizon really is. And that kind of horror, and from that point of watching Event Horizon and feeling seriously unhinged and like, am I going to be okay? Like, there was something so horrifying to me about this film. It was the most scary film, except for maybe The Exorcist. I still think The Exorcist is like, oh, it's like just, ugh. I'm scared of that movie. Event Horizon scared me deep and proper and left a very lasting impression. And then when I've sort of gone back and watched it again as I've gotten older over the years, it just grows on me more and more and more.
I love it every time I watch it.
We've got a fellow Kiwi, Sam Neill, who's this great character that ends up kind of getting possessed.
Very unlikable character.
But I love him at the same time. You know, he's unlikable, but I like him. The cast is just exceptional.
He's so arrogant and sort of egotistical.
Yeah, I guess he is. I just love him in everything that he does. Especially, he's really good at Lovecraftian type stuff. Like in The Mouth of Madness, that's a really fantastic film. And Possession, I guess that's kind of a little bit
Yeah, that's a great film.
Lovecraftian. That's just bonkers. I love that film. I think Sam Neill's fantastic. And yeah, the entire cast. Was it Lawrence Fishburne?
Larry Fishburne.
Larry Fishburne, who is
Probably
just...
execute me for calling him Larry.
Yeah, I don't think he apparently likes it very much.
And Jolene Richardson, maybe is her name. She's great in it too.
Yes.
Yeah, they're all really good.
It's so good, and the sets are just to die for. And the practical effects are amazing. And of course, it's one of those films that it has a few snippets of these hell scenes, which look, they're so disturbing and so messed up. They were one of those things that made me feel really sick. But now, of course, as I've gotten older and I have a taste for these things, I was I found out that it was all this other footage that was shot but cut out because it was just too, like,
and apparently it'll never be found again. It's, like, destroyed. So we won't ever see that extended cut, which should have come out by now.
That really is very hard. Like, you hear people saying, "Oh, I've got a copy," you know, like, I've got a copy. It's like a myth that this footage exists, but I don't think it does.
No one has it. No, the director has said that no one has it, and he's really sad about that.
It would have been so good. Yeah. It would have been so good. Just stupid producers and their stupid rules. Yeah, I'm just sad that we don't get to see all of that. But I think it's the ultimate space horror film. It's like up there with Alien. You know, it's just so good. And I just don't know why. I don't think it got a good reception at the time, but I think it's getting a good reception now.
Yeah,
It's become a cult favourite and people absolutely love it. And there are scenes from that film that just live free in my head. Oh, those practical effects, the glorious era of practical effects. It's just amazing. Mm-hmm. And talking about practical effects, this is probably the film, the best practical effects that still to this day look so terrifying and so good. And that is The Thing by John Carpenter. I was supposed to say James Carpenter. John Carpenter, the man, the one and only, the fantastic. He is just so good. And this is easily, I think, his best film. And that's saying quite a lot because They Live is freaking awesome as well.
Yeah, a lot of people, I mean, most people think that it's his best film, and it really is. He just pushed himself so much further in making this film. In fact, I won't say much about it because this might turn up somewhere on my list.
Oh, maybe. Kurt Russell, so good. And every single one of that cast, they've got this amazing... It feels very real. It feels like a bunch of guys that have been living in Antarctica and they're all friends and they're all familiar with each other. There's almost like an improvisational feeling with it. It's not like one of those, I'm reading a script and I'm trying to remember lines. It's like the way that they interact, the relationship that they have each other seems very real.
Yeah, it's quite organic, isn't it?
And considering it's really only in like one setting, it's incredibly like well done and super tense. Of course, the characterization and the dialogue is just top-notch.
It has some amazing one-liners, and I like... Every day when I'm just walking around the house doing stuff, I'll be saying, "McCready, get your gear on." It's like something from the film. It's just packed with one-liners. I mean, another film that Tarantino loves, and I think, you know, he definitely steals a lot of the ideas behind the dialogue and stuff.
It is the ultimate. It is the ultimate. It is the glorious. I first saw it when I was about 13, I think. I don't know how he managed to get it out.
Before me, yeah.
Yeah, I know, weird, because my parents are like quite religious, so like I don't know how he managed to get like a film like that. But it was my birthday, and I invited a bunch of friends around. Well, they're not really friends.
Colleagues.
I didn't. Yeah, I won't talk about what kind of a person I was in my youth, but I wasn't very popular, that's for sure. But a lot of people actually showed up, strangely enough, and we watched the thing, and we were all so terrified. Like, it's honestly such a super scary movie, and there's these moments in it where you're just like, you just don't see it coming. So I don't want to give any spoilers. I just want you to know that The Thing is my 4th favourite movie of horror ever, which is almost like my favourite movie ever. And you got to see it. And don't worry about the remake. They use CGI.
Because
why would they do
effects,
that?
Yeah, but it's actually quite a fun, entertaining film to watch. And if you're a fan of the first one, you have to watch it really, because it's pretty well done, and it's directed by a Norwegian guy, I think. Strong Norwegian cast because they go back to the Norwegian camp.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it's as bad as you think. But I would love to see that edit with the director's cut with the practical effects.
Yeah, because they actually did make practical effects for this film, which were freaking unreal and super, super, super good. I think from the Stan Winston school, and they didn't use it. So producers, you suck. And it's now held up as like one of the prime examples of why CGI is bullshit compared to practical effects. So it's not like those, it's actually cheaper to do practical effects and it's far more creative. So yeah, it's just really sad.
Yeah.
You just yeah. But yeah.
Maybe one day, like Johansson's Blade Runner score.
Yes, let us hope. We live in hope. Number 3 is The Shining by Stanley Kubrick. I'm kind of sad about this one because it was a movie I've been obsessed with for a really, really long time, but it's gotten really popular in pop culture, which kind of puts me off.
I love it. I think it's a good film, and it's so well made, of course, because it's Kubrick. And but I've seen it so many times, and like over the last 10 or even 20 years, it's almost like
it's
you see
become a
people with
parody
their
of
shining
itself.
socks and like t-shirt, like you find we found like what was that sort of sweatshirts, shining sweatshirts at like H&M.
But H&M,
you know, it's kind of like so ubiquitous that it's kind of like becomes a bit eye rolling.
Which is the same thing which happened with Midsommar, which is really sad because I love that film, but it just got really like, I don't know. It's just a shame when things almost get too popular. They almost become like parodies of themselves. But The Shining, I have watched that film more than any other film. I can watch it infinite amount of times. I love it. I love every line of dialogue. I think there's a little bit of Jack Torrance in me. Like sometimes I realize that my gestures and the way I speak is a little bit like him, which might be an effect of watching the film so much.
Did not put you in a bad mood then?
No, I've just got this snappiness to me that's kind of like a little bit of him, a little bit of Jack. I mean, he's a writer. Not that I can really write.
I love Shelley Duvall.
I know, right?
Poor Shelley was what Kubrick put her through. Jesus, if you want to know, there's a documentary, The Making of The Shining, on YouTube, and Jesus, you can see her crying, and it's not because of the character, it's because of what she's going through. It's because of what Kubrick was putting her through, and yelling at her, barking at orders at her, and telling her, I can't even remember, but watch it.
But her performance is so spectacular. It is one of the most iconic performances in cinematic history. So I don't know, part of me thinks like, if I could give a performance like that, it would almost be worth like a total nervous breakdown.
Yeah, she actually said after that film and after all the stuff about her, being yelled at and stuff, she said she totally forgives him for it, and she was very pleased about the performance she gave because of that pressure. And she's taken a long time off filmmaking, but I just saw the other day that she's acting in a film again, so she's having a comeback, which is quite exciting.
Isn't it?
That fucker, what was his name? That guy that did an interview with her, and it was horrible. Dr. Phil.
That guy's a monster.
Yeah.
Actually.
That was very upsetting.
It was really upsetting. He just, he's worse than Kubrick. He just exploited her for views, whereas Kubrick wanted to get a really incredible performance, which he did get.
But he did it in a very manipulative way.
Yeah.
Which wasn't good.
No, not good. So I've read the book of The Shining after I saw the movie. It's okay. It's not as good as the movie.
I don't like Stephen King.
He's okay if you're feeling really brain dead.
It's just too light.
And you just, it's like when I was really sick with Crohn's disease for a long time, I would read his stuff because it was so fucking easy to read. It wasn't challenging at all. You just chew through a book in a couple of days. It was just easy. But the book is and the miniseries that came was just It was much more like the book, which Stephen King liked. Apparently Stephen King didn't like it. Yeah, that shows how shitty his taste is. It's like
shows how traditional
Kubrick made something glorious out of a silk purse out of a sow's ear, and King was all like, I didn't like it. Nah. This film is so good. It's got the cinematography is just to die for. All the performances are incredible. It's very claustrophobic, very much a psychological horror with a little bit of ghosty supernatural stuff going on. I freaking love it so much.
I think that film was where the Steadicam was invented.
Yeah.
Garrett Brown was used it for those shots of Danny gliding around the hotel.
And his little trike.
Trike, yeah.
Yeah, so iconic. It feels like something out of my childhood because I think I remember carpets like that when I was really, really, really little. So it's kind of trippy like that. Okay, moving on to number 2, Firewalk With Me by David Lynch, because that film is a horror if ever I've seen one. When Nick showed us in film school film class way back when I was about 16 years old.
Lunchtime,
Lunchtime viewing. the scene where Laura Palmer's kind of like, "Firewalk with me," and it does this thing, and it like does this flash of her face where she's got these black lips and like yellow teeth. It was seriously, that was the most fucked up, scary shit I'd ever seen. And it did something to me. It made me feel really like horrified. And I mean, I fell in love with it pretty quickly because there's this bizarre stuff with Lil, like she's my brother's sister's girl, like this shit where there's this lady with this soft face and moving around, and it was the first Lynch I'd ever seen, and it came out of, there was no context for me, but from that moment on I became a Lynch fan, and I still to this day I think like it's probably one of the best films he's ever made, and I don't understand why it got so much hate.
It is gaining a lot of respect, though.
I think so.
It's got a real cult following, and it's thought of as one of his great films.
It's just damn straight, it freaking is. It's such an interesting story. It's about a beautiful young woman whose life looks perfect from the outside, but really it's just falling apart. I think Blonde will be seen in a similar way in about 20, 30 years. People will be like, oh, actually, it was a really good film.
It's
like,
weird that Mulholland Drive has been voted the greatest film of the 21st century. I don't know, obviously, Firewalk with Me isn't from the 21st century, but it's weird that isn't like thought of as just as important as Mulholland Drive.
I don't understand it
if
at
not
all.
more so, in my opinion.
It's just, it could be about also incest in a family and about what happens behind the scenes in a small picture perfect town.
Yeah.
Oh boy, but it's also got this this kind of like supernatural aspect as well. And Lynch's mythology, the world that he has created, is just stunning. Like, it's just so involved. Everything makes sense. And of course, there was Twin Peaks. There's the TV show, which I've watched several times after seeing Firewalk with Me. But we both loved The Return. We thought The Return was fantastic. Even if the ending had me just devastated. I was like, Lynch, how could you do this? So good. And then The Missing Pieces, of course, came out. We watched that quite recently, and that's great. It shows with all the missing pieces added to Firewalk with Me, you can see how it's slightly more comedic. It's a little bit more like kind of funny, like the show was.
Yeah, and he took all those bits out to make it a more frightening experience.
One of the greatest, like to me, it's the second greatest horror ever made. There's nothing like it. It's so scary and it's so beautiful all at the same time. And yeah, the universe building around it is spectacular. And some part of me thinks that Lynch maybe has tapped into something that I kind of believe in a bit more than other things. Doppelgangers and tulpas and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, it's feasible. Black lodges, red lodges. Yeah, I can get into that. I actually kind of think that he's based it a lot on maybe things from Buddhism that actually kind of make a lot of sense to me. So absolutely. Love that film. Unforgettable. Oh, and Sherilyn's performance in that. She should have won an Oscar for that. It's a bit like if Ana de Armas doesn't win an Oscar for Blonde, it's like the same thing again. Her performance is so, oh man, like her performance in that as Laura Palmer. And I got to see her and there was like they came to Christchurch in quite a small theatre and sort of did a Q&A, but we didn't get to ask many questions because they were busy. But Laura Palmer herself, Cheryl, she looked right at me and she winked. And I just like was trying really hard not to cry because I just love her so much, and her character in Firewalk with Me is someone that I really identify with, even though I was never into drugs and having lots of boyfriends or anything. It was never like that sort of popular beauty queen. There's just something about her character that the darkness there that I totally still very much relate to.
I relate to her as well.
I think she is like for anyone who's a bit suffered or struggled with things, I think her character is really
it's a film like Blonde about trauma.
It is about trauma and it's so well done. Oh, love it so much. My son watched it recently and I think he's quite a sensitive soul. He does like horror, but he found it quite like unnecessarily kind of nasty, I guess. And I think to his generation there's a certain nasty, but like Blue Velvet, I mean that's quite a cruel film in some respects.
I think Blue Velvet is probably more cruel.
It was cruel. But I just think it was quite... I think it's just how real and how vicious the darkness seems in this film that it's quite shocking in a way that other films can't capture that kind of darkness. But he said he was certainly very inspired by it. Lynch is very inspiring. Before I give my top one, I'm going to quickly run through my honourable mentions. We've got Alien, of course, The Wailing, which is a is it Korean film? Yep. So good. I love that one. Shamans and stuff. I love The Wailing so much. That's one movie that also just totally fucked me up. It's really scary. It is actually really scary. Got Train to Busan, of course, the Korean zombie film that's just so good. I'm going to do a top 10 zombie films because zombie films are kind of my thing. And
To do that by
there's no
yourself,
way. Yeah, exactly. There's just no way.
No,
You've been watching a few though.
I have been enjoying them lately because we watched Return of the Living Dead, and I really enjoyed watching that the second time, although I fell asleep so many times. But
You did.
God, that always happens with that film for me. For some
Yeah, it's
reason.
funny, yeah. So Train to Busan, The Ritual, which I mentioned before, The Sadness, which is it's shot in Taiwan, it's in Taiwanese, which is
I love
just
that
such a
film.
cool.
Very
That's
cool.
Jabas. We actually reviewed him on The Sadness. We love The Sadness, practical effects to the max, but it's a modern movie and it's so good. I love it so much. I actually read all of the crossed comics after watching it because apparently they inspired it a bit. They are so messed up. I was not in a good space after reading them, but I read them anyway because I just could not stop. Color Out of Space, 28 Days Later, The Innocents, which we reviewed, so good. Wow. The Fly, of course, Cronenberg has. I really wanted Cronenberg to be in here, but it just got a little pushed up.
Not my favourite Cronenberg, but I
In terms of horror,
Videodrome, Crash, and Dead Ringers.
Dead Ringers, but
Easily
they're not
my
as
favourites.
horror as much as.
No, I'm just saying.
So I'm just saying my favorite horror. I really wanted Cronenberg to be on this list, but it got beaten out. I'm so sorry, Cronenberg. But The Fly is amazing. I love Midsommar, but I think it's a bit overdone. Candyman, Saint Maud, which is the first film by a female director, and it's just so good. We showed that to some friends a couple of weekends ago, and we were just like, you need to see this. Incantation, which is an Taiwanese, I believe, film. It's found footage. It is actually really scary. I really struggled to finish it because I was like, is something bad going to happen? Am I going to be cursed? Very good, cool mythology and world building there too. Let the Right One In, the original, not the remake, which I refuse to watch. That is a great film. Rec in Spanish, really good. Actually, the American remake doesn't suck either. The Lighthouse, of course, The Lighthouse. It's just incredible. And The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because that one really stuck out to me. That's an unexpectedly awesome film. Once again, like 3 characters, 1 set. I love films that can do
Yeah,
that.
it's a fun ride.
Really fun. And quite creepy. Genuinely quite creepy.
It's got a witch.
It's got a witch. We love witches. Anyway, she's such a powerful
She's an
witch.
amazing actor too. It's not easy, I don't think, to lie there so still.
She's the corpse hold. Amazing film. So my number 1 of all time, just making sure that you see up right. My number 1 film of all time, number 1 horror film, it's one that I watched recently, thanks to Nick introducing me to the amazing work of Kiyoshi Kurosawa, and it is Pulse.
Cairo in Japanese.
Cairo in Japanese. Okay, so I was enjoying this film, and then there's a scene with a woman, shadowy, walking very slowly, and she kind of almost like
Falls over.
falls and then rights herself. Oh,
But
I'm
it's
getting
like in
creeps just
slow
thinking about
motion, but it isn't slow motion, I don't think.
I don't know how he did that. It scares me
I think
so
that the
much.
woman is actually a man.
Really?
Yeah, if you watch it carefully, you think, and just focusing on the face, because when you watch it, you're not really focusing on the face, you're watching the body movement and stuff. But I'm pretty sure it's a man. Yeah.
We rewound that a bunch of times because it's like, how the fuck is he doing this? How is he doing this? How is he doing this? I don't know how he does
Like
what he
Tarkovsky,
does.
Yeah.
Yes, he's the only living director that makes me feel like Tarkovsky makes me feel. There's no other director that makes me feel that way. Lars von Trier, there's a little bit of that. Definitely, like, he makes me feel things. But Kiyoshi Kurosawa, boy, there's something about his films that I really get inside me, and I'm just don't know how he does what he does. It's literal magic. This film is about isolation and the internet and mass hysteria and so many things. And
suicide.
And suicide, yeah, very much about
Japan.
suicide. It's very. I just don't, there's just nothing else like it. Kiyoshi Kurosawa is like Lars, he's like Cronenberg, he's like Tarkovsky and Lynch, in that he's created his own universes. And even the couple of dramas we've watched of his, they still feel like Kiyoshi Kurosawa, yet dramas you can watch with the family. I don't know how he does what he does. I don't know how he creates the atmosphere that he creates, but I'm still getting goosebumps just thinking about so many moments from this film. It's just so haunting. It's to me, I love J-horror, but this one really just is the greatest one to me because it's so artistic and unsettling and frightening and sad. There's this incredible sense of melancholy in it, but it's so beautifully done. The whole look of it as well.
Yeah, I do love this film. Me, but
I love it so much.
But Cure and Retribution, I think, are just as melancholic to me. They all have that feeling of sadness.
Yeah, I put them in my top 10 crime films because I couldn't. Yeah, actually, I can't say anymore because I might give away something about my top 10 of all time. But yeah, Cure and Creepy were in my top 10 crime films. They're just amazing. So thank you so much, Nick, for introducing me to Kiyoshi Kurosawa.
You're welcome, my love.
I don't know how I lived this long without him in my life. I highly, highly recommend you check out any of his work. And maybe like me, start with Pulse, because that began my complete obsession with him, and him just knocking off every other director ever in terms of horror. There's just no one that does it like Kiyoshi Kurosawa. He is the master. He's senpai, Kiyoshi Kurosawa. And I'm so grateful that he exists and that he makes films and that he made this film. And I really don't want to give too much away because it's an experience and I didn't know what I was going in for, and I think that's the best way to go into it.
Yeah.
Just know that it's my favourite out of all of these. Oh. So I guess that does us.
Yes.
Well, does me, at least.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna shoot ourselves a little another video coming up with Nick's top 10. It's gonna be so cool. Can't wait. We tried not to tell each other too much about what we've done.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a surprise. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Let us know what are your favourite films of horror, and yeah, any of these that you liked or you didn't like, let us know. That'd be cool. We can have a little discussion.
Yes.
See you later, guys. Bye.